Welcome to Beyond the Book with Julie, a chance for inspiration and insight from the author. Jamie Brenner, she grew up in Philadelphia. She went on to study at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. She studied literature. Then she moved to New York City, where she started her career at HarperCollins Publishing, then later went on to Barnes& Noble and Vogue.com before returning to books and becoming an author. Jamie is a USA Today best-selling author. Her titles include The Forever Summer, Drawing Home, The Husband Hour, The Wedding Sisters, and now Summer Longing. All of these sound just like the perfect title for women to just get very deep into. But this latest one, just out May 5th. So you are still in celebration mode with this book.
Yes. And it's been, obviously every author right now is having a crazy experience, but, in some ways it's kind of broadened my horizons. Like I think you and I, if things were like regular, we would have waited till I was in LA and who knows when I would have actually been sitting down with you. So this like cut to the chase and here we are. So
I agree. I agree.
yeah.
It's opening many doors in ways, and this having all this time actually kind of helps us, right? It helps
Yeah.
me. I'm not schlepping kids here and there all my day, not able to find your book and so many more.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely interesting. I've been talking with other writers about this. I mean, I feel for people who can't work in the regular rhythms of their life, but for authors, like we're always kind of hunkered down alone doing our thing to get the book done, at least during that period of time. So we have some tolerance for this,
Yeah.
in terms of like having to stay put.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm trying to like see the silver linings at this point. Not
Right,
we have no
right.
other choice.
Yeah, exactly. No choice at all. And I had in my mind that May 15th was like the end date. And now I'm being told mid July. And I feel like it might be even longer than that. It just goes on and on, which is
I
why
was
I don't have
just
time to read all of your books.
It's funny. I was just messaging with a bookseller today, and I said to her, I can't imagine not being a reader. Like to be someone who doesn't read, because I can't imagine like that hole in my life right now. Like I think books are keeping us connected.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've always wanted my books to be like an armchair vacation, like even during times when people could actually go to the beach. And now more than ever, we need to virtually escape.
Right.
So
Yep. Get out of our head and into
yeah.
books like this that take us somewhere so wonderful. Now, tell us how you chose Provincetown. You go to lots of beach towns. Sounds
Yeah.
like you explore these all the time. Why Provincetown?
Provincetown, when I was writing The Forever Summer, which was for 3 books ago, that came out in summer 2017, I'd been looking for a really special place where my characters could have this sort of journey of discovery. It's about a woman who discovers that her father isn't her father, and she has to basically reckon with this while dealing with her mother. And everyone convenes in a place. And I'm like, what place could facilitate this story? Like, the emotional journey these characters are on.
Right.
And I was watching the CBS Sunday morning show, which I do every week, and they happened to be doing a segment on Provincetown. And the author Michael Cunningham, who wrote The Hours, was on, and he's a longtime resident. And he said, Provincetown is an eccentric's sanctuary. He says it's one of the few places he knows of that actually prefers peculiarity. And I thought that sounds like a place that's like ripe for a novel setting. So I went to visit with my husband, and I just fell in love with it. Like I really felt, some places trigger like feelings and emotions and inspiration more than others. And this place just like completely set the book off and running. So I chose it for that book. And I plan to try to set every book in a different location. So from that book, the next summer, I set one at the Jersey Shore, The Husband Hour. Last year, I did Drawing Home in Sag Harbor, which is in the Hamptons.
Mm-hmm.
But I just found myself pulled back to Provincetown. So I returned to it with this book. Um, And in many, no, not in many ways, in one very specific way, this book probably wouldn't have worked anywhere else, because the story is about a woman, Ruth Cooperman, who is looking for a place to retire, to leave everything behind. So she shows up in Provincetown. You know, she's sold her business, her daughter's grown, she's divorced. This is totally her me time. She's free. And then before she can even unpack her bag, she opens the door to leave her rental home. And there on her front porch is an abandoned baby girl, which is like the last thing she
Exactly.
wants to deal with.
She wants
So
me time. That
she
does
wants
not
me time.
include an
And
infant.
if this book were set, let's say, in Boston or Philadelphia, most people would just call the police, and that's the end of that story. But in Provincetown, there is a very strong sense of we take care of our own, and we're a community. And this baby forces Ruth into this quirky town full of people, and it instantly immerses her in the culture there.
Exactly. Yes. And I love this tea shop, and the ladies who run this tea shop talk about that and how this tea shop is actually important to you in real life, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the tea shop. So there's a bookstore in Provincetown called East End Books, owned by a wonderful man named Jeff Peters. When he hosted me to do the paperback release of The Forever Summer, he had a woman there with a special blend of tea called the Forever Summer Tea, and her name's Megan O'Connor. So it turned out I was like fascinated by this
Of course.
special tea that was made. So she has a shop in town called the Captain's Daughters, which she co-owns with a woman named Danny, and they had formerly worked at Marc Jacobs. And these two women like lived the dream. Like they had this whole corporate life, and they said, we're leaving it behind and we're opening a tea shop in Provincetown, which is something people would fantasize about, but not actually do. And these women did it. And it's a beautiful space when you walk in. It's just like a huge exhale. And I thought, I need to incorporate this into the book. Like, I want to bring my readers into this shop. So in the book, the main character, Ruth, is renting her summer home from a couple named Fern and Elise.
Mm-hmm.
And Fern and Elise own a tea shop called Tea by the Sea. And Fern and Elise are also strongly affected by the appearance of this mystery baby, because they had for years been trying to have a child of their own with no success. And it was very difficult, but they had decided to move on. And then this baby appeared and it reopened that old wound. So that sets them on a course of having to deal with their own emotional journey this summer, and it intertwines their life with Ruth.
And you talk about IVF, you talk about lots of mother-daughter relationships. How closely does that mimic your own personal life, or is any piece of the book part of your personal journey in some way?
So I wanted to write about motherhood from all different angles. A woman with a grown daughter, a woman who wants a baby, a woman who doesn't want a baby, you know, because motherhood is just this very interesting, multifaceted thing. The idea for this book started really like 19 years ago when I had my first child. And it it changed the way I looked at my relationship with my own mother, not in the way you would think. Like, I think some people say, oh, it made me appreciate my mother more. For me, it made me realize, like, there were certain things that I would never do, like emotionally guilt my child. Like, I'm just like, I would never do this. And it made me actually create boundaries that I really needed. And I think motherhood and our perspective on it is this ever changing thing. You know, once we have a child, we're never the same. And I think in some cases, our relationship with our own parent changes.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wanted to explore that. And in this book, Ruth has had a strained relationship with her grown daughter. And when she sees this baby, she realizes there's unfinished business there. And she lures her grown daughter back to town. And then the daughter, in turn, brings her father to town, Ruth's ex-husband. And before you know it, all the things that Ruth thought she'd left in her rearview mirror in life are now right in front of her again. And I think that does happen in life. You know, we think we've kind of like left stuff or like, oh, that doesn't matter. And I think when we don't deal with things, it does come back sort of to like bite us later on.
Yes. Well, I also find it interesting how in the book you really talk about this relationship between Ruth and Olivia, and and then they're separated, and Olivia goes with her father, right? And Ruth is a busy businesswoman, but that sort of shapes Olivia to not want to have children and to think she will just be career focused. And just like in real life, the situations that we have with our own mothers really shape whether we decide we want motherhood or we don't.
Yes. I mean, I do think it's still the issue of having it all has not been solved. And I think anyone who tells you this is the thing to focus on or that's the thing to focus on, like no one has answers still. So Ruth was a highly motivated career woman and her daughter felt like she got the short end of the stick. And the daughter Olivia decided you can't have it all, so I'm just going to focus on work because I don't want to do to my child or a child what my mother did to me. And Ruth, from her perspective, having lived her whole life, is alarmed that her daughter would feel this way and doesn't want her to miss out on a
Right.
very important part of life, which is love and relationships and family.
Yes. Yeah, it's also our stereotypes, right? Or it's our just our way of thinking that we come into the world thinking at a very young age. I personally always wanted kids and a family and just thought like that is the only way. And then I have three daughters, and one often has often, ever since she was very young, said, I never want to get married and I never want to have kids. And for me, that's like, wait, what did I do wrong? Do I make it seem so horrible that you don't want this one?
Wow.
So it's very interesting. And we can take a lot of that inward as mothers, right? Like, that must be my fault. And if you choose one way, what did I do wrong? Or why don't you want this other way?
Yeah, well, one thing I have two daughters and they're very different from one another. They're complete opposites, but I'm the same mother. So I've come to realize so much is hardwired. And
Mm-hmm.
I tell people like I don't take credit for their achievements and I don't guilt myself for anything that goes wrong.
I've heard that
And
before.
yeah, it's so true. And because they're both so different, like I really see how limited, like it's kind of like we can let ourselves off the hook. We don't have that much control. Like it's really once they're like fed and healthy, it's not our thing. It's
Right,
them.
right, right. And
Yeah,
they will make their own way. And just like in the
absolutely.
book, people evolve, right? And there are
Yeah.
second chances. And you really make a point in the book about showing that we evolve and things change and our perspectives change.
Yes, I really think that I think it's a shame that we're in some ways told, like this is who, like I'm a completely different person than I was
Mm-hmm.
in different phases of my life. Like I really feel like a different person, and that's actually a healthy thing. And I am not surprised by that because in my 20s, I read Erica Jong's book, Fear of 50, and
Mm-hmm.
she writes about how like she said it's like we're supposed to change and when you change it changes your relationship with your partner or partners depending on whether or not people change with you.
Right.
So I think that's another thing we're made to feel bad about if
Mm-hmm.
something and a book that I love that addresses this right now is Glennon Doyle's Untamed.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't read that yet, but I've seen an interview she did with Reese Witherspoon. It was amazing.
it's such a good book, and it kind of addresses all this stuff about, you know, who we are in relation to our children, and giving ourselves permission to change and to say, okay, I wanted this at this point and it worked for me then, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me anymore.
Right. And it's
And
so easy to have so much guilt
yeah,
about changing and about
yeah,
wanting different things. Or
yeah,
really for women, it's about the guilt of wanting anything for ourselves. Guilt of wanting anything for ourselves, right?
definitely.
Yeah.
And, but the flip side of that is I do think we can have second acts or third acts.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be confident or embrace the fact that whatever is happening today is temporary,
Mm-hmm.
and that, you know, that does not define what's going to happen tomorrow. So even if we want things to stay the same, they don't. And I'm really fascinated by twists and turns later in life, and I read a lot of biography and memoir.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and some of the, like, for example, some of the authors I admire didn't start writing until they were 50.
Right.
And from the perspective of the readers, like, that's when they began their life. But they had, you know, decades of getting to that point, decades of becoming who they were supposed to be.
Yes, the experiences and putting all the pieces of their puzzle together to
Exactly.
figure out who they were and what they were going to become.
Yes.
Going back to the book, what is the fascination with the oyster farming? Why all the talk about oysters?
So my first book, The Forever Summer in Provincetown, somehow I wrote the whole book without getting the characters really out on the water. And the water is such a huge part of the town. It's a peninsula. It's surrounded on three sides by water.
Right,
So I
right.
said, this time I'm going to make the water uh, almost a
Come to
character in the
life.
book itself,
Right.
come to life. And I read about oyster farming in Provincetown. And I was fortunate that a friend of mine in town, an author named A.C. Birch, was able to introduce me to a local oyster farmer, a woman named Lori Santos. And speaking of second acts, she had spent her whole career as a teacher. And then she retired and decided, I'm going to start an oyster farm, which is it's tremendous physical labor. I mean, the woman
Right.
is a dynamo, and it's hard work, but I was really intrigued by it. I'm fascinated by people who can make their living off the water or off the land, whatever the case may be. So she took me out on the water. We spent a day on the flats doing what's called picking oysters, which is when the tide goes out, all the cages the oysters are trapped in, or then they come to the surface. So you pull them out of their cages and you pick the ones that are right for sending to a restaurant. And I just loved it. And I thought, you know, I wanted to center a family, because Provincetown, you know, there's people who are, they're artists, there's Portuguese fishing families that have been there for generations, there's the tourists. It's such a mix. And using the water allowed me to show just another sort of mainstay of life there, which are these fishing families.
Right. Provincetown sounds so magical and wonderful. And I know someone in the audience did say that it is so magical. So I'll definitely have to get there one day. How is it different from Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, do you think? Because I've been to those places.
You know, I've never been to Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket, believe it or
Oh,
not. My my only experience with Cape Cod is very specific to this town. So I don't. I would guess the thing that makes Provincetown different from every place is that there's an eccentricity in like the most positive way possible. It's one of the country's oldest arts colonies. I think it really is a celebration of art and artists, and in a way that I haven't experienced even in New York City, which is also, you know,
right.
historically home to tons of arts and
Yes,
artists.
yes.
So I would guess that's the difference. Not that there aren't artists and writers in Cape Cod or
Right, right.
Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard, but Michael Cunningham also said it's a place where I don't want to get this wrong, but it's something like odd behavior odd behavior is applauded, not bad behavior. But if a guy is riding down the street, you know, on a tricycle with a parrot on his shoulder, with like paint on his face, like no one would think twice. You know, it's just,
Very unique.
you know, they have
So there's no
this,
judgment there.
there's no judgment.
And great
Absolutely.
acceptance.
And I think it is a place of second acts. I think there are people who have landed on the shores of Provincetown who left things behind and they want to start over. And this is a place that embraces you with open arms to do that.
Incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
I'll definitely have to get there. And then another question was going back to the tea. You mentioned in the book that tea is made of seaweed. Is that?
Oh no, well, it's not made of seaweed. There are people who are experimenting with using seaweed and incorporating it into tea and other forms because farming seaweed is really, really good for the environment. And there's a company, I can't remember the name, that is offering seaweed tea. It's got tons of health benefits and it's an important thing for the ecosystem, the way farmers are using it. Which I get into in the book, and I can't remember all the details offhand now, but tea is not made from seaweed, but you can, dried seaweed leaves can be incorporated into a mix of tea leaves as well. So you can get all the nutrients from the seaweed, and some of the seaweed has really good flavor, and people are experimenting with that.
And is the seaweed like a stronger antioxidant, has more good benefits of it than regular tea leaves? Or to some degree?
It's not that it's better. It's important for the environment for seaweed to be harvested. Something about the carbon dioxide and dealing with certain environmental factors that are eroding our waters. So it's not that it's a crop that's good to grow all around. So it's not better than regular tea, but it can be added to it to offer different flavor. And it's something that fisherwomen, whatever, people who are farming off the water are seeing as an important addition to their crop for ecological reasons.
Right. And so you decided to incorporate this element in the book because of the tea shop and the water.
Yeah. I saw something on 60 Minutes about this and how important it is for the environment. So I wanted to incorporate it into the story.
Very smart. Excellent.
Yeah.
It just brings like a different layer of depth besides everything else that's going on in the book.
Yeah. Well, it also served to get the characters together in a way, to physically, you know, sometimes when you're writing a story, you know, you want to get certain people together and then you have to think, what can I do with the storyline to get the characters to do what I need them to do? I always know at the beginning of my book and the ending of the book, it's always a challenge figuring out how to get there. Yes. So sometimes as I'm writing, something will come up like
really like a lot to me to put it all together. It's a
process.
Yeah, I'm sure. Do you write on Word or how do you do your writing?
I write sometimes on legal pads and then I'll type it up into Word. And sometimes I write straight into the Word document. But particularly if I'm trying to figure something out or I'm stuck, I always go pen to paper.
And do you dedicate like a certain amount of hours every day?
It's not even the hours. I have it broken down by word count. So I always know, okay, I really need to write 2,000 words today. So if that takes me 2 hours, then I'll let myself stop. If it takes me 8 hours, I will do 8 hours until it's done. So that's really been the way I stay on this book a year schedule.
I see. So are you working on your next book now already?
Yeah, I finished my book for next year. I'm just doing final edits and revisions. And now I'm starting to plot my 2022 book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and another question, how do you come up with the titles? Do you decide that early on, at the beginning, at the end?
I always have a title in the beginning, but sometimes it changes. This book, for example, I didn't have, it was a different title when I was writing it. Like I just had this other idea in mind. I actually had the word mother in the title, but it wasn't fully coming together. And then Summer Longing came pretty late. And it's just amazing that it's so apt for this moment when people really are longing for summer in a way I couldn't have imagined.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
So
I
your
try to have the
timing.
title in the beginning because it often kind of guides the theme and it keeps me like centered. Like this is the story I'm telling.
And do you pretty much come up with these titles on your own, or do you have people that you're sharing that, you know, they're reading your book and they're kind of helping you come up with the ideas?
I've come up with the this is the first book that I didn't come up with the title on my own, I think. I was really couldn't think of an alternative title because the publisher didn't like the one I had. So my agent um, helped me. I think he was the one who came up with some version of Summer Longing.
I see. Truly
Yeah,
incredible how it all comes together, the time it takes, but all the
yeah.
creativity also. And all of your kind of different aspects of life that bring it together. Would you say in this book you have actually in real life met somebody who sort of portrays each of these characters?
No. In other words, or is each character based on someone in real life?
Yes.
No, they're all fictional. Um, there are two people who own a tea shop in Provincetown, but they're not a couple. They're just business partners. So like that couple in the book is completely made up. All of my characters are just products of my imagination. I mean, some of their problems or reactions might be based on people I've run into, but I really do try to see these characters as their own people.
Incredible. Would you say that there is one character that you are most like, that you personally are
Oh
most
my
like?
goodness. In this book,
Yes.
oh my gosh, that's such an interesting question. Oh my goodness. I no, I can't. That's like I think there's probably a part of me in all of them, but I don't see any one of them as me. It's just
Fascinating.
too hard to see. Like I don't think we can see ourselves objectively, but
Right.
I would definitely say there's a piece of me in every single character.
Would you
Even the
say there's would you say
even the
there's a
mean
piece
one.
of you in every single one of your books?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Every book starts with something I felt emotionally. Like, you know, it's like there it starts the germ of every book is a feeling like that I experienced.
That is great. Oh my gosh, all of your books seem just incredible. I can't wait to read The Wedding Sisters. And I
Well, I was
love
gonna say, if you have three daughters, that's the book for you.
I, and I didn't even know that. Is it about three girls?
Oh, it's three sisters, and they all happen to get engaged within weeks of each other. And
Oh
the
my
parents are
goodness.
freaking out. Like, how are we going to manage this?
Right.
And someone comes up with the idea of, because no one wants to step back and say, I'll postpone my wedding. So the parents put their foot down. They're like, if you're doing it all this year, we're doing one wedding, a triple wedding. And the planning of this wedding brings like all the family secrets and issues to the surface. So it's a family drama about the three sisters and this triple wedding.
Are you in talks with anybody about making any of your books into a movie or show?
So I wrote a script. I adapted the Wedding Sisters into a script, a screenplay for
Yes.
film. And my managers, like currently, we're talking to and looking at directors, but it's a process. But
Very
that's the one I could really see. Like I love all the Nora Ephron movies and Nancy Meyers movies, and I rewatched the Sandra Bullock movie, The Proposal.
Oh yes,
Oh my
love
gosh,
it.
which is so, I mean, every time I watch it, like I laugh. It's so funny. And right
Yes,
now, like, especially now, I want to be in that headspace, you know, in that sort of
right.
fun.
Yeah, absolutely fun,
Yeah,
fun and exciting, and it just take us away from where we are right now, right?
exactly. Exactly.
Well, this has been so much fun. Really lovely to meet you, Jamie, and hear
Thank
about
you too.
you and how all these books come together for you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Julie. I look forward to meeting in person one day
Yes,
soon, hopefully.
absolutely. You'll have to come to Los Angeles. Everyone will want to meet you.
I can't wait. All right. Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care. Be
Bye.
safe. Thank
You
you,
too.
everyone. Thanks for joining us. Follow at Facebook, Instagram, and our website, Beyond the Book with Julie.